All right, good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. So excited to be here to talk about this live today. I'm going to do a solo one today, and I haven't really shared much about it this week because I've been busy sharing about the Income and Impact Bootcamp that I'm running next week. But I still wanted to do this live because it is one that a few people asked for when I put out a poll a couple of weeks ago and asked, did you want a live on systems that scale in your business or a soulful CEO mindset? Good morning, Phil. Good to see you on here. Find Your Fit Forever. Great to see you. And I actually wanted to do this one more than the systems that scale. When I think about the topic that I'm more passionate about, it's this one. But I do know that systems are important, and I knew that people wanted that one. So we did that one first, but now we're gonna talk about the Soulful CEO mindset. And keep in mind today, as I'm talking about this, is that, there's no answer to this. There isn't like, this is what you need to do in order to have the mindset of a soulful CEO. These are things that I've noticed, that I've seen in my own journey and in others that have helped me really cultivate what I would call a soulful CEO mindset, and the things that hang up a lot of people, when they're building their businesses. Hi, Maria, that might be you that's on there. Great to see you. Okay, so we're gonna dive in because I've got lots to talk about today. When I was building out this session, I was like, I really wanna keep it to 5 tips, but I had to create 7. So we've got 7 tips to cultivate a CEO mindset, and I'm gonna take you through all of those right now. So the first one we're gonna start with is to actually see yourself as the CEO of your business. Now, I want you, as you're watching this, whether it's now or the replay or whatever, is that I want you to really think about, what is your relationship to that word CEO? Does it make you feel expansive, like powerful, that you can step into it, that you own it? Or do you feel resistance to it, like either it's not you or that you don't actually want to take on this title of CEO? Now, I hear everything on that spectrum when I ask people this question. So wherever you are, no judgment around that, or that you are feeling like you should be somewhere else. But just try on for the next little while. What would it actually look like if you were to play with wearing a hat? It doesn't mean that that's all you are, but wearing the hat of CEO in your business. Now, most people that I get to work with, and this might be you, is we don't get into business because we want to be a business owner, that we want to be a CEO. There are people who are like that, but a lot of the people that I get to work with are what I would call like craftsmen or craftswomen first. And so they are either creatives, or they are coaches or teachers, or, they want to help, they're helpers. So you have this craft, this thing that you want to do, whether it's been an artisan or a designer or whatever, and then you build a business around that. And so where I find a lot of the resistance comes up for people is where they think that they have to give up the identity or the archetype of being the craftsperson in their business, and they have to take on this like business mindset. And we have this weird relationship sometimes with what we think leadership means. And that's because we have this strange hierarchical model that we've been working in the corporate world for so long, where there's this person kind of at the top who dictates everything to everyone underneath. And so what I want to invite you to think about is, because it's your business, you get to define what being a soulful CEO means to you. But what I do want to invite you to try on is that it's one of the hats that you wear in your business, one of the many hats that you wear in your business. If you watched the live on the systems at scale, you would have heard me talking about those 5 pillars, maybe it was 6 pillars in your business. So there's marketing, there's sales, there's product, there's team, there's operations, there's leadership. And as the CEO, when we are wearing that CEO hat, and how I define soulful CEO for myself and my business is really thinking about, how am I taking accountability for and authority over the health of all of those areas of my business? Because often there's competing desires within our business. So if we're wearing like only our marketing hat, we might be like, we need to invest in advertising, we need to invest in building our brand and building our awareness in the marketplace. But then the other part of us, so maybe there's that would be like the marketing pillar, right? But then there's the finance pillar, which is like, we can't spend that money. So often there's these competing desires within our business. And when you are able to wear the CEO hat, you're almost like the overseer of all of it to make sure that the whole business is healthy. So that's the first tip in really cultivating this Soulful CEO mindset, is how comfortable are you with wearing the title of CEO? Because if you're not gonna do it, nobody is. And so unless you hire someone on, which most of the people who are watching this are not going to be hiring on a CEO of their business. And so it's really about, how do you make that title comfortable for you so that you can step into the role of taking care of your business, because the health of your business is the most important thing. It will allow you to show up and do your craft, the thing that you really want to do. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is about uncoupling your worth from your work. Now, this one is so much easier to say than actually do in practice, but it is so important. So when, especially as service providers, especially when it's you putting yourself out there, like your product or service is you, uncoupling your worth from that work is a huge challenge, and something, if you don't want to ride the roller coaster of entrepreneurship, you're gonna have to play with. So how do you do it? Well, really, it's about understanding that you are not your work, right? So it's really kind of a spiritual conversation at the end of the day, is each one of us is priceless. We can't put a price on it. We can't put a price tag on how much our product is worth in terms of our worth. But what we can do is we can start to separate the two, to say, I'm gonna price my product, but that has nothing to do or a reflection on whether if it's successful or not, whether that's a reflection on me, and whether that is something that, I'm not good, or I'm not, worthy of doing the work that I want to do because people don't want what I have. So how do we do that? Well, we take on really this idea, and I'm going to talk more about this later, around being a curious scientist and looking at everything in service of your growth. So when you're doing pricing and packaging and positioning, this is a topic I love to work with people on. It's really looking at how it's really like you're wrapping your soul gifts, and you can wrap them in a bunch of different ways, with different price points, with different how you position it, with all of these different pieces. And when you understand that what's inside of that package are your soul gifts, those things are priceless, but how you actually package them and present them to your ideal client, what language you use around it, what branding you use around it, that's all for play. That's all for experimentation. And when you can work from that mindset of using everything for your growth, you can see that the failures you have nothing to do with you and your worth. It has everything to do with how you package and position your offer. I was doing a workshop the other day. Who was it with? It was a younger group of people, and they were getting into entrepreneurship. What group was it? I can't remember the group. But someone asked me, and it was super sweet. They're like, have you had any failures? And I had to it was a genuine question from this person, and I felt bad kind of laughing about it, but I was like, of course. And so they're like, how did you overcome them? And there's been some major failures in my business. This program that I have been working on for honestly 4 years to properly package it and position it, there have been times where I have launched it and it has been absolute crickets. And it would have been so easy to be like, well, I shouldn't be doing this work, or this isn't for me, or, people don't want what I have. And it takes the mindset practice, because of course those limiting beliefs come up, and they, there's the little things in the back of your head, but it's the mindset practice of getting in, sovereignty around those, and really getting in the driver's seat around those thoughts, to rewire them, to look at, no, it's actually just how I've packaged and positioned this, that I'm not doing a good enough job communicating what this product or service does. So uncoupling your worth from your work, really look at, where is there enmeshment there? Where do you feel like your worth and your work are one? And the practice is to really just start to do some mindset work around that for yourself. So when you see that belief come up, a practice I can give you right now in this moment is to bring awareness to it, and then ask yourself, what else could also be true, and list out everything that could also be true on top of that limiting belief. And once you have that list, now you get to choose what belief would actually be in service of your highest self, of your future self, of this product or service actually making it into the world to actually help people. So next time you have something come up where your worth and your work get enmeshed, they become one, do that practice. Is just look at, okay, I see that. What else could also be true? And what belief am I choosing in this moment to serve my highest self? So that's number 2, uncoupling worth from work. Number 3 is around emotional mastery. So as an entrepreneur, you are going to have highs and lows. There's no doubt about it. There's, as soon as you think, for me, I remember it being around signing a client. So I would get, a client reach out to me. It wouldn't even be signed yet, actually. Someone would reach out to me. They'd want to do work with me. And I'd get this crazy high. And then all of a sudden it would be like weeks until I heard back from them, or maybe they didn't even sign with me or whatever. And then it would be this like crazy low. And I was riding this crazy wave that was, I felt like I was at the like tail end of the dog. All of the things outside of myself, all the things that were outside of my control were dictating my highs and my lows in my business. So one of the things you want to look at is gaining this idea of neutrality. So being able to see everything as neutral and be able to turn up the temperature dial or turn down the temperature dial on your excitement, on your sadness, on your disappointment, but not have that dictated from the outside world. So it's like we are the ones that get to say, yes, like that is a dream client. I'm going to celebrate the hell out of that. Or to be like, okay, that was actually really disappointing and sad. I need to take a day off to, just process that. That's okay if we are the ones turning up and down that dial. So I don't have an easy fix for this. I have been doing a lot of energy work around this for the past 4 years, working with a coach around this, doing this crystalline consciousness technique. And if you want to learn more about that, reach out to me. I'm happy to share my resources around that. But really, it comes down to the energy work I found has been super helpful, but also you can do meditation and mindset work, because ultimately what we're trying to do here with emotional mastery is we're trying to get outside of ourselves, and we're trying to be able to have like sovereignty around being able to turn up or down the dial. So it really is about creating space in between stimulus and response and being able to choose our response in that space between, which meditation is a huge help. And the thing with meditation is it's not like you do it once and it's like you're good. It's a practice that happens over time. I've got this friend who's been meditating every single day for over 2,000 days now. And we were on a hike the other day and she was just sharing about her own experience over the last little while and how she really has noticed that she's been able to operate with more neutrality in her life and been able to process stuff in a totally different way. And that's because it has a cumulative effect. When you do something like meditation for a long period of time, you start to build that muscle so strong that no matter what comes your way, you're able to look at it from a objective perspective rather than getting pulled into it to ride that wave. So emotional mastery, whatever it is, however you go about cultivating that, that is definitely a huge part of the Soulful CEO mindset. Okay, the next one is around being a curious scientist. And I kind of talked about this a little bit already. And I got introduced to this quote a little while ago in some of my corporate work that I was doing. It's not really a quote, it's more a story. And there was a man named Ben Zander, and he was the conductor of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. So if you know anything about symphony, the Boston Symphony Orchestra is like one of the best in the world. And he was known in this space, which a lot of people are highly, emotional in this space, or something goes wrong, it's like, not exactly dealt with in the best way. But he was known for, people loved working for him because if things went awry, if things didn't go right, he didn't get mad, he didn't get pissed off, he didn't be like, fix it. He genuinely got curious and had this statement of, isn't that interesting? And so he would look at everything through this lens of being this curious scientist of like, that's actually not a mistake, that's super interesting, and what actually led to that mistake happening. And so that's the invitation here around taking on the mindset of a soulful CEO, is that there's going to be mess ups, there's going to be things that don't work out, but how can you use everything for your growth? Whether that's a launch that doesn't go well, whether that's a one conversation that you have, a sales conversation that tanks. Instead of making it about you and your worth, how could you put on that mindset of looking at it and being, isn't that interesting? What about that conversation had that person feeling like they didn't want to work with me? What a totally different place to come from than feeling shitty about yourself or getting angry or being like, they don't get it. Is like, we can really take ownership over our thinking, but also we can use everything so that we continually grow and get better. It's kind of like that principle called Kaizen that the Japanese talk about, slow, never-ending improvement. And that when you take on the mindset of a curious scientist, you can experiment, you can play. It doesn't have to be perfect. Things can mess up, they can blow up. And instead of making it about you, you can just be like, isn't that interesting? And then take that for that information and create a new experiment somewhere else in your business. Okay, the next one that I want to talk about is about following the breadcrumbs. So this one comes up a lot, and when I'm coaching people, because they often feel like if they are the CEO of their business or really take on this mindset of CEO, that they need to know everything. They need to know exactly how to do the thing. They need to know exactly how to get to their 6-figure income goal, which is not true. Is like, we don't need to know everything. We just need to know what the next right step is. And so this is why I love working with this 90-day time frame when it comes to goal setting in your business. Well, goal setting in general, and especially right now when we don't know what 3 months is going to look like. So why plan out so far ahead? We can have an empowering vision for our future, which can be as far out in the future as you want. But we can't actually attain that vision unless we can start taking the next right steps. So using this idea of you don't need to know everything, but how can you follow the breadcrumbs? What's showing up for you in your world, in your life, in terms of people, opportunities, where your excitement is. A practice I can give you here, which is really fun, is called a joy journal. And this one I learned from Alyssa Nobriga in her certification program, and it seems so simple. But when I did it, I was like, oh, like that's actually really powerful, because you're following your joy, which essentially is tuned into your soul, right? It's little messages from your soul saying a little bit more of this, please. So the joy journal is to keep track of every single day the moments in your day that brought you joy. So these are things like, it could be sleeping in, it could be reading in bed, it could be going for a walk in the sun or having a conversation with a friend, whatever it is, but track your moments of joy throughout the day, the things that light you up. This can be in your work, right? It could be like, I really love having conversations with these types of people. And when you do that, then you can start to look at what are the breadcrumbs, what are the next right steps that are being presented to you that you could follow in order to understand what your next right steps are. And from there, be able to create 90-day goals out of that. So it might be, I really enjoy working with, say it's like female entrepreneurs, but right now I'm not really doing anything to serve that market. What could I do in the next 90 days to get more plugged into following that breadcrumb? So maybe it's joining a group like, the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs is a great organization for female entrepreneurs. So maybe it's following that little breadcrumb, and then something else opens up there. You find a mentor, or you find, like a business partner idea. So often when we follow these breadcrumbs, they open up opportunities for us rather than stopping being in inaction because we don't know the whole path or the whole plan. So be okay with uncertainty, be okay with not knowing the whole thing, and be okay with, and this is so important, not only be okay with, be relentless with being in action around your next right steps. Okay, these last two are fun. So number 6 is around putting our soul in the driver's seat and our ego in the back seat. And let me explain. So often there's this misconception that ego is bad, right? We shouldn't have ego. And what I want to invite you to think about is that ego and soul are actually in partnership with one another. But the problem is, for most people, is ego is in the driver's seat. And when ego is in the driver's seat, it stops us from taking action, putting ourselves out there, from doing things that we might fail, because ego hates failure, because it thinks that it makes us look bad. So what we want to do is we want to cultivate a healthy relationship with our ego, and we want it to support us, because in a supportive role, it can be really helpful, right? It can help us with self-confidence. It can help us do things that we don't really feel quite ready to do yet. But when it's driving, it can lead us to weird places. So we want our soul to be in the driver's seat, our ego to be in the back seat. And when our ego shouts out from the back seat and has some backseat driving tips for us, we can take that in and we can consider it, and we can say, okay, is this actually helpful for me? Is this something I should take into consideration? Or is it just like, you know what, I'm good, I've got us. I'm gonna take us where we need to go. So how do we create this distinction, right? How do we actually take this concept of having our soul in the driver's seat, ego in the back seat? How do we actually put that into action? One of the biggest things is creating space to listen to your soul desires, creating space to listen to your intuition. So often we think about this title of CEO as being like all business and taking care of our business and being in action. Yes, that's true. But it's also about creating that blank space where we can just tune into, what do I really need right now? What would be in best service of the world, my business? And how can I have more space for my soul to actually come through my work and my offers? And that only happens when you create space for it. So for me, nature is like the plug-in, right? I can, journal and stuff like that, and that's sometimes helpful. But for me, I get out. I was just in a walk the other day in Pacific Spirit Park here in Vancouver, and we were in this place, in this park, and I was like, I feel like this is where I meet my God, and it's like a cathedral for me in there, and I get just downloads and connection. So find that spot for you, those places in the world, in your life, where soul speaks to you. And then you'll start to cultivate a relationship, a healthier relationship with your soul, a more integrated one. And then ego, we can put in the back seat, because often ego is there because we have the most cultivated relationship with that. We don't learn how to cultivate that relationship with our soul early on. It's mostly around our ego. So last one here is around being in energetic alignment with our goals. I totally lost my notes. I just realized I went to go look at them, but it's gonna just all come from up here. So being in energetic alignment with our goals. So this one, yes, we're talking about strategy. So far I've been talking about strategy, being in action, but it is just as important to do the inner work so that we can be an energetic match for the things that we want. So the most easy way to talk about this is around income goals and revenue goals. And I'm going to be talking about this a lot in the Income and Impact Bootcamp I'm going to be doing next week. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But how do we're going to claim and name a revenue goal, which is awesome. But then we have to actually believe, and we have to take action. We have to be in energetic alignment with that goal. So say we just out of, I actually did this with myself this year, is like, I was like, what would it look like to have a 7-figure business? If I created a 7-figure business, what would that actually look like? And I did some of the, math around it, what my offers would have to look like. And then I tuned in energetically to who would I need to be in order to have this 7-figure business? And in that moment, I realized it was too far ahead for me. I'm not an energetic match for that goal at this point in time. So I reeled it back and I looked at, what am I an energetic match for? What's a little bit of a stretch for me that I can step into, but isn't so far out of possibility that I say it, yeah, I want $1 million business, but I'm not actually showing up in the ways and in the energetic ways that would require that business to happen. So when you think about being an energetic match for your goals, the things you want to look at are, what are your beliefs around your goals? Do they seem possible? Or are you setting these goals and then you're like, well, I kind of hope that it'll happen? Or are you committed to them happening? Are you so committed to that goal happening that the timeline doesn't actually matter? right? And so I talk about this often is, so you have a goal for something, it's like creating, maybe it's like a 6-figure business, letting go of the timeline, but being an energetic match for that in the moment, so that it actually doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there, but you're just showing up in that energy, embodying who you need to be in order to make that happen every single day. When that happens, that your goal will come to life. You just need a long enough timeline. So those are the 7 things in terms of the cultivating a CEO mindset. As I said, take some of them, leave all of them. It's totally up to you. These are just the things from my own journey that I've seen to be really helpful and being able to really step into and own every next level. Because one of the things that I know for sure is that this work is not like a one-time and done kind of thing. It's like our mindset work and our up leveling, if we want to grow ourselves in our business, is a constant journey, and every next level of your business will require next level of you to show up. So when you think about taking care of the health of your entire business, including you as the leader of that business, this work is ongoing. So even if you take a couple of nuggets out of these 7 things that I talked about today, amazing. If some of them don't resonate for you, absolutely leave them. You do not need to take them, and they are not the truth, that is for sure. Yes, if you want to do more of this work, we are going to be diving deep into being an energetic match for your goals next week, really taking on the mindset of a CEO. So really owning and naming and claiming your revenue goals and creating a business model that will work back from there. We are doing that all next week in the Income and Impact Bootcamp. It's a 5-day free event that I'm hosting from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. All of the sessions are going to be recorded, so if you can't be there live, no big deal. You can watch the replays, but if you can be there live, I've got some pretty sweet prizes lined up daily for people who are there live, because I want to make this super fun, and I love games, so we're going to just do prizes and giveaways and make it awesome. So I would love to see you there. You can just register using the link in the bio if that's for you, and if not, I'll always be back here with more lives on Fridays. So thanks so much for all of you that joined live. Great to see you, and hope you have a beautiful rest of your day and your weekend. Bye.